Pete's house in Baltimore. This story for, I don't know, as long as I've been doing sports radio here. I am releasing chapters of the Peter Principles next week that will cover in great detail, and I got a little flippant with someone on Facebook on Sunday about the Masson money and Peter Angelos and the Washington Nationals. And lo and behold, Ken Rosenthal reported on Sunday afternoon that the Orioles have essentially refused to deal any of their players to the Washington Nationals because they don't get along with management there. This guy has been as good of a citizen as I have found anywhere as a resource on the internet because he is an attorney at heart. He is a Nationals fan deep in the heart of D.C. And I don't just call on anybody in D.C. And Justin Howard knows that. He is at the Half Street Heart blog. You can follow him at Half Street Heart on Twitter as well as at halfstreetheartattack.com. He is a purveyor of all things Natitude, but with two small children, he has been relegated to just watching Masson 2 or 1 like all the rest of us and enjoying Johnny Holiday amongst others. We welcome Justin Howard back on to not only discuss Natitude, Orioles, Masson money, and the war, but just baseball in general because it is the trading deadline, and, well, he doesn't want to talk about the Redskins because who the hell would want to do that? Justin, welcome in, man. Happy summer to you. How are all things in the land of Natitude? This is the awful year, right? Like the Orioles are about to have a sell-off of some kind. They won't deal with the Nationals, and the Nationals are just going to sort of hopscotch their way into October right now. So to the victor goes the spoils. Your team's good, and we suck.
Well, the Nationals keep waiting for a pennant race to start up, and I don't think we're going to get one. I think it's kind of the Orioles are going to have a pretty calm season from here on out because it looks like a lost season, and the Nats are kind of the opposite. It's going to be a lost regular season, and it looks like they're going to skate into the postseason because there really is no division competition. It's kind of a very odd race the Nats are in right now.
Well, before we get to them on the field, off the field, and the Masson thing, because a huge story broke last week, you are the first of, I'm sure, the 5 or 6 conversations with smart people that I try to have. And as you know, you're an attorney. I found you on the internet researching my book 3.5 years ago. I reached to you. You've been a twice-a-year, visitor here, usually when the Orioles play the Nats. But, every 6 months or 9 months, a piece of news breaks on this. The number grows exponentially every year, by $40, $60, $80 million a year. We're now getting up on $400 million of disputed money. All of that money sits on Mr. Angelos' side of the fence. The one thing that I do know about this, anytime I write about it, anytime I speak about it, anytime I blog about it, some yabo idiot on the internet, I think you've met this guy, does have an opinion on it that is completely, factually, functionally, and historically untrue. There really aren't a lot of people who understand what the hell's going on with this dispute. You are one of them, which is why I like to talk to you. And last week, the Nationals declared a victory. It's not a victory in reality because they haven't collected their money, but the worm turned on Mr. Angelos a little bit last week as this thing has rightfully, in my opinion, been thrown back into Major League Baseball's lords, where they have decided all of these things internally because it benefits all of them to sort of cook their books upward, to charge more money and to make more money and to split more revenue. But Mr. Angelos has always been an outlier in this ever since he walked away from the other owners during the strike in 1995, as I covered in Chapter 6 of the Peter Principles last week.
Yeah, well, you're right. The Nats did declare victory. I'm not sure it really is a victory because I think victory in this circumstance for the Nats would have been getting their money 5 years ago. Right now, we have what the closest thing to a victory that they've gotten recently in the Masson decision, or the Masson court case, which is still ongoing, and that's by design because Peter Angelos. That's his style.
That's what he does. He waits for you to die or give in and tangles you and your very expensive attorneys, which Mr. Lerner can afford, but most people can't. And this is how he's conducted his entire life as an attorney, And I've tried to point that out in the Peter Principles as best I can, but it sort of takes one to know one, and you're an attorney, right?
I am, and I find this to be a very interesting case, and you can tell if you read the decision that just came out. It was a 3-2 decision, so there was a little bit for the Nats, the people that the three that ruled for the Nats and the two that ruled for the Orioles. So each side could take a little bit out of that court case. But it's like I said, it was. This is Peter Angelos' strategy: is to grind you out, to go into court. That's where he's most comfortable. He's a lawyer. He's a litigator. He's happy to drag this out as long as possible. My personal opinion is that there's really no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here for Angelos. I think he's going to lose this.
He's going to write a check of some kind, right? I mean, and it's going to be a really big number because the Nats have been screwed by tens of millions for a half a dozen years, bare minimum, just on their rights fees, let alone what their percentage is of the profit center, right?
Or even more likely, he's going to be in a position where he's out of other legal options. He's filed all the motions he can file, all the appeals he can file, and he's at the point where he has no other choice but to write that check.
He'll never write the check, dude. He will. His history of 88 years on the planet indicates that even when he has to write the check, he'll find a way to not write the check. I mean, it's unbelievable how slippery, in writing and reading again aloud the Peter Principles, and we're going to present it in its entirety next week as I take a little downtime for my anniversary with my wife and my mom's birthday. So you'll hear that here at WNST, and you can hear most of it in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault, and I'm releasing chapters 9, 10, and 11 next week. Chapters 12 and 13 are dealing directly with all of this massive money and the world that changed for him in 2004 and 5 and 6 when the Nationals were born. And, the one thing that's been very, very upfront that everyone should know is just how much money he's put in his pocket from the mere existence of the Washington Nationals. It has absolutely changed the quality of his financial picture for his life the last 15 years because the Expos showed up in D.C. It's like the thing he never wanted to happen happened, and now as we stand up on the edge of this Machado thing and the dealings on the field and off the field, the Nationals are going to be playing baseball in October, and he's not. And I'm sure at heart, as much money as he's made, that probably infuriates him for his pettiness as much as anything, that the team down there has become a better franchise by a lot and certainly looks to have a lot rosier future, even if they don't win this year, over the next 3 or 4 years, while he has literally had his foot on the neck of the franchise's profit center, strangling all of the profit out of their franchise while wringing it all into his pockets, because none of this money has ever made it to Major League Baseball. It has been money that has been on the exterior of revenue sharing and on the exterior of what baseball considers baseball-related revenue, because it's all associated with the television network.
And the television network is the thing to watch. As you pointed out, I'm not worried about Peter Angelos or his finances. He's going to be fine. But really, I mean, in the future going forward is what is the financial viability of MASN going to be? And that's really what they're fighting about. They're not fighting over the Nats getting a little bit bigger piece of the pie than the Orioles want them to have. What they're really fighting about is the financial structure of MASN. Is it going to stay solvent? And the Nats know that. The Nats, that's the reason that they are pushing this issue.
Well, they own 18% of it now, or 9, whatever that number is. 18 or 9, it's somewhere in there at this point, right?
It grows 1% every year, so it's hard to track, but it will top out at 33%, and it started at 10, and that was more than 10 years ago. So, what the Nats' perspective is they're happy to push this as far as they can, because they know if they push MASN, there's a good chance that they can break it. And with the recent decision, if the numbers kind of come out the way that Major League Baseball wants them to come out and the way that the Nationals wanted them to come out, there's a chance that they could break MASN financially. And the Orioles know that too, and that's one of the reasons they're fighting as long as they can. They're trying to, I said earlier this week, they're trying to run out the clock. That's not the right analogy. What they're really trying to do is they're trying to foul at the end of a basketball game to keep the game from ending. Because when the game ends, MASN may not have the money to pay the Nats what the Nats really need or should get based on what's fair market compensation for broadcasting the games.
He is Justin Howard. He has a great blog of all things Natitude. It is Half Street Heart Attack, and you could also follow him at Half Street Heart out on Twitter. He's all about the Nats this summer, and certainly from the trading perspective, like the on-the-field part. Forget all the nerdery about the Masson and the money and billionaires fighting with other billionaires and miserable people. The Nationals are clearly the better team. They're clearly the better franchise. They're clearly also, along with those starving Capitals fans and the ailing Redskins fans and the Wizards fans that know they're never going to beat the Warriors and probably aren't going to beat LeBron next year either, that the Nationals really do sort of hold that flicker of hope for the community there. And more than that, the obvious nature of the bullpen problems now being addressed on Sunday afternoon with the deal with the Oakland A's. We've learned that the Orioles relief pitchers were persona non grata and off limits. I, as an Orioles fan, as a competitive guy, I would have loved to have fleeced a couple of your minor leaguers down there, some fellows with some attitude, and introduced them to the orange and black. But, that wasn't in the cards, and the Nats sort of went in early on the trading deadline, as did the Cubs on the Quintana deal over the weekend, and the Orioles saw him on Sunday. But the Nats improved their baseball team on Sunday, right?
They finally did, and the question, everybody knew they were going to make a trade at some point. I mean, they had to. We knew this in April, that the bullpen that we were looking at the first half of the season was not the bullpen you can go into. It would be malpractice to go into the postseason with that kind of bullpen. So we knew a trade was coming. Really, the question was, what were the Nats going to have to give up? And they have some kind of blue-chip prospects in their system right now. Victor Robles is one of them. They have probably about, I would say, 3 different names that are probably untouchable high-level prospects. The question was, is the situation going to get so desperate they would be forced to touch one of those guys? So if you're a Nats fan, you should be happy about the trade on Sunday because they didn't have to move one of the big guys, and they got some people to staff the bullpen. It's really a lot of times when you look at teams trying to make a trade for a closer or maybe a setup guy, the Nats need to do a complete facelift on their bullpen. And yes, I think this weekend was kind of the first start of that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was another move between now and August.
All right, man. Well, I am going to bid you adieu, and I'm sure we will get together again soon and discuss the Masson deal. This thing, what's the next move? I guess the Major League Baseball folks now are going to put together their little committee that Angelos doesn't agree with, and they're going to try to figure this out. And look, internally, they're always going to bake their books and give teams more money, right? I mean, that's part of the strategy to continue to make all of the real estate a little bit more expensive in the neighborhood, right? Like, that was part of the game, except that Angelos was the neighborhood at that point.
Well, that's one of the amusing things about the case, is that baseball really is kind of its own little world. It is not fair. It is a cartel. They don't operate by the same rules the rest of the business world operates in. So when they do get into court, you never know what's going to happen. And if you read the recent decision, both sides kind of did a wink and said, this is kind of a weird little world that baseball.
Yeah, can't you guys? You're all making a lot of money amongst each other. Can't you figure this out amongst gentlemen, right? I mean, kind of, sort of. They are partners. They're in the same business, and that's the unprecedented nature of this. And the vitriol of this is suing the partners is ostensibly like rule number 1 of the club is we don't sue each other. It's literally in the codicils of the agreement. When you buy a team, you forego the ability to sue each other, and Angelos has already broken that on policy, right?
And that's true. I mean, back when Bud Selig was in charge, he said, this is the decision. We've made our decision. I'm upset that the two of you could not work it out among brothers, Orioles and Nats. We had to make this compromise, panel decision.
He chastised them publicly.
He said, he said more than that. He said, I will sanction you if you go into court.
Well, the other part of that is he wasn't going to give them all-star games until they figured it out, and somehow Washington got one.
and I think my opinion is that hurt the Nationals in Major League Baseball in court. It didn't cost them because they eventually won, but the courts don't like it when people say you can't go into court because that's why they're there. They want to settle disputes. They don't want a big bully like Major League Baseball saying you can't go into court. You can't use the court system to settle your disputes. So that was kind of one of the factors pointed to that this is not a fair process. But at the end of the day, the Orioles lost because it may not be a fair system. Baseball may not operate fairly. They may operate like a cartel, but this is the rules that the Orioles chose to settle the MASN dispute.
Hey, you bought the McDonald's French fries. You can't argue about you don't like the way the apple pastry is this month, right? Or the literally. I mean that's part of the deal, right?
And that's one of the ironic things here is that the MASN contract is heavily slanted towards the Orioles because they had the leverage when the deal was signed. The one aspect of it that is not slanted towards the Orioles, that if there's a dispute about fair market fees, it goes to a panel of Major League owners to decide what's fair market. That's the one thing the Orioles are complaining about.
Well, the complaining is after the reset, who gets to decide the value? Tom Boswell wrote 12 years ago, I hope that's not Peter Angelos. Peter Angelos thinks it's him. I mean, literally, right? He thinks he will be the person that will dictate what that number is because he owns 83% or whatever that number is at this point, 82% of the of MASN. And you know, this thing, to your point, it keeps the fouling at the end of a basketball game. That's exactly what this is, right? And he might have 3 or 4 more fouls to give at this point.
Yeah, it may be, and it may take years, but I think that's part of the plan. That's part of the strategy. Whatever he can do, whatever legal wrangling, further appeals, further threats, to keep from writing that check that the court last week said that he needs to write. That's the plan at this point.
He is Justin Howard. He does all things Nats in a great Nationals blog called HalfStreetHeartAttack.com. You can also follow him at HalfStreetHeart out on Twitter. He's a great follow and always up on all things legal between MASN and Mr. Peter G. Angelos. Well, hey, man, I'll have the Peter Principles out for you next week. Always a pleasure to catch up with you and check in with you. Not a pleasure to be thinking that Washington will be playing baseball in October and we will be watching the Ravens at that point. But
getting there is the easy part. As we know in D.C., getting there is the easy part. Getting to round 2 is the hard part.
Well, tell that to the Ravens. We're trying to get there this year, and don't tell that to the Caps or the Wizards because I think they'll be in the playoffs next year, but wake me next year. At least we share the Caps, dude. You know, I mean, like usually in Baltimore, you find peace with the Capitals in a conversation, and the Terps to some degree, but we can all agree that the Caps are, you know, breaking our hearts, right?
And the Wizards. They break our hearts, too.
Yeah, they do. Well, we can only hope the Nationals break your heart in October, but I'm trying to be nice to you, pal. So, great. But I do think you deserve all the money. That will not break my heart when Mr. Angelos has to write that $314 million check or whatever it's going to be.
And maybe he'll sell the team, and I think both sides will be happy with that.
Oh, he'll never sell, dude. He's never sold anything in his life. Do the research. He's never, ever, ever sold anything. Ever. Ever.
Well,
literally.
I think it is interesting to see what may happen at the end of this. If it's not unusual for sports leagues to push owners out. They did it with the McCourts. Basketball did it with
Sterling.
Right? You know, I could see this getting so contentious and Peter overstepping his bounds. You know, even
I have been told that the boys are not going to be welcomed into the club, that they're going to figure that out, that they don't want the boys in the club. I've been told that for years. Only time will tell. You know, only time will tell.
There's a long way to go in this, I promise. We'll talk again.
It never ends. That's why we love it so much. Great to have you on, Justin. Be well, man.
Thanks, you too.
You got it. Justin Howard of the Half Street Heart Attack blog down in D.C. Go follow him. It's worth it. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. I am reading the Peter Principles. You can check that out there as well. And you can always email me like Mr. Angelos. I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. And, of course, if there is any breaking news with the Orioles making a deal, the Ravens getting on the field next week, you'll get it all first in the WNST text. And that's all brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home. He can't wait for football. We can't wait for football. We're a week away. We're excited about that. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.